Coming up on today's episode, Model 3 finally releases a Key Fob. There's a new mini-BFR in the works, and the big constellation of satellites is going to provide internet to the entire planet. Let's go. Hi there, welcome to Our Ludicrous Future, the podcast where we talk about all the crazy stuff, the technologies that are changing our world today and making our future crazy. This is episode 9. I'm Joe Scott from the Answers with Joe YouTube channel, and with me is Mr. Tim Dodd.
Hi, I'm Tim Dodd, the Everyday Astronaut from the Everyday Astronaut Everything. And there's also with us Ben.
Hey, what's up, everyone? This is Ben Sullins from Teslanomics. And guys, this is our last episode before we get into double digits. I think we need to really take some care here and make sure this is a good one because there's so much to talk about.
There is. This is a good week. I think us recording on Fridays is really smart because everything comes out on Thursday night. It's so weird.
I was chatting with the Tesla team yesterday about it. I'm like, what's the deal? They were like, yeah, this is a double whammy Thursday. You get a couple big stories out of them. And you're like, so I think Fridays it is. Now, of course, next Friday is TeslaCon. So we won't be able to do it then. Mm-hmm. And Tim, you're traveling anyways. But I mean, this is like 3 or 4 weeks in a row on Friday. I think it's Fridays. It's settled.
That's so weird. Yeah, maybe we'll just have to record Thursday next week. But also, we're still working on improving. Every week, we're working on improving some things. So we're listening to your feedback again. Thanks for letting us know. But I think we're finally getting, hopefully, we're getting some better audio. We're getting some better video and all that stuff. But yeah, the important thing is the content, the conversation, right? Right?
Yes, that's right. And so where are we going to start that conversation today, guys?
I'm good at
talking stuff.
Who is the one that talks today at the beginning?
Ooh, who is that?
I believe that's Mr. Ben.
Ooh, Uncle me? Ben. All right. Are we starting off with
his uncle? Do you have a niece or a nephew?
I do.
They call you Uncle Ben?
He isn't old enough to talk, but yes, he will call me that one day.
He'll call you Uncle Ben.
He'll call me Tio Ben. But yeah.
Okay.
All right. So first up, the Key Fob, which I have been a big proponent of for a long time because the Model 3 has had issues.
Boo, no, it hasn't.
Oh, yes, it has.
No, it's perfect. It's never had an issue. It's absolutely no. And so one of the big things that I had an issue with early on, and people that will say it's because I have an Android phone. My wife had the very same issue. She has an iPhone, so it's not isolated to that. Is accessing the car, getting in the car. In an ideal world where we all had the exact same phone and Tesla could design it perfectly, you'd be able to just, have it be Bluetooth to your car. It unlocks, you get in. But when that doesn't work, it can be really, really frustrating. And so they finally come out with a Key Fob for the Model 3. Now, it doesn't work how you may want it to, though. And so I'm a little sad and disappointed about it. I did order one. It's $150. They're already sold out. I'm sure they'll come back. Yeah. I'll do a video on it and test it and see whatever. It may not actually come to be worth it. And the reason is it doesn't have passive entry. What that means is that when you walk up to the car, it doesn't automatically unlock like a Key Fob does or should, or how the other Teslas work. I do think they could change that, and maybe they will. But you'll have to actually, I think, click on the Key Fob once to lock or twice to unlock in order to deal with it. So that kind of sucks. But as like literally last week, my wife called me. She was stuck outside of the car for 10 minutes because Bluetooth, for whatever reason, got turned off on her phone. And so she, couldn't get in and she didn't have the card with her. So it's one of those things where, having the Key Fob, even if it's only as a backup, in literally a situation that happened to me last week, would have been really nice. So I think it's still worth it. I think for folks that have had issues, it's probably an easy buy. But I am a little saddened that it doesn't have the passive entry. Also doesn't have summon, which is a really cool feature on the S and X. If you guys aren't familiar, you can do the summon feature from the Key Fob. And so maybe they'll add those things down the road. But right now, it's there. It's good. If you've had issues, you can, or maybe you can pre-order it or waitlist it or whenever it comes available again. So that's the Key Fob. Yeah, I'm curious what you guys think, because you both have Model 3s.
Yeah, Joe, what's your success rate? Like with your
I was about to say, so like we are on opposite sides. So Tim has apparently never had a problem with this, and I have a problem every single day with getting into my car with the phone.
So are you?
It's become it is the biggest headache I have with the car easily.
Really? Did you order a Key Fob already?
No, by the time I looked it up, it was sold out. Crap. I mean, it happened like overnight.
Wow. I'm sure they'll get it back in stock if it's that important,
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm guessing, Tim, you would have no interest in getting one. I mean, you have no need for it if it's working.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to get one. I did have a period of time, like when version 9 came out, the first release, it was glitchy for me for like probably a day or two where it was bad. It wasn't good. Mm-hmm. And now I'm back to, I've forgotten about it already, which is the ultimate situation. Like that's what you want. You want to never think about it. And it's been back to that way for me. So as long as it stays like that, I am very happy.
Every time I've had a software update, I'm like, please fix this problem. And it hasn't so far. So, Tim, and part of it, but part of it is because I have the iPhone 8 Plus, which is basically a surfboard with computer components inside of it. And so like if I first of all, if I'm parked in my garage, it almost always works. Like it works every single time if I'm parked at home. But then when I go out somewhere and I'm walking up to it in a parking lot, it almost never works. And the problem there is I usually have stuff in my hands. I'm either from the grocery store or I'm, some fast food place or whatever, I'm walking out and I got stuff in my hand and I've got this giant surfboard phone. And the thing is like, so like it's dead. And I know people can't see it if you're on audio, but like when you just press that side button and it kind of wakes it up and you do that will cause it to unlock. Yeah. But if I actually like go into it, it doesn't necessarily unlock it, but it does if I pull it out and put it up next to that B pillar like it's a card, which I also have in my wallet. So sometimes I'll just take out my wallet and put it up there. If I do that, it unlocks it. But still, here's the deal. Like I've got something in this hand and I've got the phone in this hand, and this phone is too big to do that and then open the door with the thumb and the pulling, and like I can't do that and hold the phone at the same time. So I got to do the thing and then put my phone in the pocket, and then it's just like this whole extra series of steps. It makes me wonder
if your phone has like some kind of setting that's like trying to conserve battery or something, so it's not broadcasting Bluetooth constantly.
I've asked a friend of mine who works for Apple what the deal might be with that, and he had me check some settings, and it all looks like it should be.
So weird.
So
that's the thing, right? And I think the challenge, like from a technical standpoint, in my head, what this comes down to is, in an ideal world, this would be a beautiful solution. But you literally have thousands of different phones that you have to write code for. Right now, you have just a couple major platforms, but Samsung implements Android differently than Google does, or OnePlus does, or any of these companies. Even different versions of iOS in different phones handle these things differently. So that is the challenge, right? Like from a fundamental design standpoint, I think there's a flaw here, and that is that it's overwhelming to try to make it work perfectly on all these devices.
Yeah. But here's my bet is that I think this will become more and more common for many car manufacturers in the future to want to consider using a phone as the primary key, just like this. I think this will be in 5 years pretty normal, but I'll bet there will be a new protocol or some kind of way that it works, with like the app developers or the phone manufacturers that say like, hey, we're going to make it so this stream of Bluetooth for this device can be absolute priority, and it's, might drain your battery a little more or something, but it will be a priority so that it will work reliably as your phone or something, some back end thing.
I've got a better solution for you. Face ID.
Ooh, that would be cool.
Don't laugh. It has 8 cameras.
I thought you hated Face ID.
I have it on my laptop and it's amazing. So I open, it's a Surface Pro 6 and it just has it built in. I pop it open. It has the little red kind of infrared camera that pops open and just logs me in. I never have to log in or enter a password or anything. It's just amazing.
Yeah.
You know, my phone has it too, but I don't like it because it takes a little bit. There's like a half-second delay versus just having the fingerprint reader on the back. I have a Samsung, what is this, S9 Plus. So I think like that's not ideal. But imagine it would not be very difficult to write software using those cameras that when you approach, it looks at you. It doesn't even have to actually identify your face. It could just look at your body and tell by how you're walking that it's you.
That would be I just can't imagine.
No. That's totally. So if you look at like Facebook's algorithms for figuring out who's in photos, it can do it when you're not even facing the camera. And it does it based on your body language, your positioning, and all those kind of things. It's actually a problem that's already been solved. The challenge then, of course, is the cameras would have to be running basically 24/7, or you'd have to have a sensor that notices
or at least the one camera, like the driver's side B pillar camera.
Right. But I'm telling you, like we need to eliminate the phone as an option in this kind of chain of tech. I think the car just needs to be able to do it. Like from, you know, or even like fingerprint reader, you just get up and tap it and boom, it just works from the door handle or something.
That would have been cool.
I think it should have a sensor that can measure your pheromones, so it kind of smells you as you walk up.
Smell-o-vision. Yes.
Musk.
Smello-car. Oh, it smells your musk.
Oh, the
So
musk
opener.
Meter. Oh, man. The musk opener.
Musky.
Oh, no. Okay. Now we're going in a different. Yeah.
Now there's no more people listening.
So there's a lot more Tesla news, but I'll let one of you guys talk about one of these because we got 2 more stories to cover, I think.
I'll talk about track mode because I'm excited about that.
Go for
Let's
it.
hear it.
Track mode is coming out already for performance Model 3s. And that's including me, apparently. At least.
Yeah, because you didn't think you'd be able to get it.
I kind of didn't think, because they made us think about it for a bit, that like, you know, that I don't know, because Tesla offers the performance Model 3 with an additional performance upgrade package. Used to be the way it was. Hang on. Oh, there we go. Yeah. There we go. Pulling up that screen. And let's find my response here, because I did ask right away, like, is this coming out for Model 3s without the additional performance upgrade package? And then, of course, here, I know how to find this. Of course, Mr. Musk almost immediately, I don't know what he's doing, guys. I think he might be stalking me. I didn't even tag him, and he's responding to me now. So I'm getting a little half excited that he cares, but half is he stalking me. So, okay, Model 3, blah, blah, blah. Congrats, this is very exciting because they were talking about how that motor trend took it to the track and it's now crazy, crazy fast. And I go, this is very exciting. And if I recall correctly, performance Model 3s without the performance upgrade package will have the option of getting track mode as well, correct? And then Mr. Elon Musk replied, he just goes, yes. But like, he wasn't even tagged in this. That's where I'm like, okay, all right, buddy guy. But so this is really exciting. The track mode is basically, people might think of it. Actually, my friend that's a huge car head that I talked about a few weeks ago that drove it was excited. He's like, I can't wait, for them to be able to turn off traction control. And when you have dual motors, it's not really turning off traction control. They actually have to like program it to be able to drift and do things in a smart manner. So they're almost like, they mentioned it once as adding features to the car as opposed to turning off like stability control and traction control. So they actually kind of had a program, sensing like it's going to have this much yaw and, therefore, as you're turning the wheel, Ben's pulling up a graphic here of oversteer and understeer. They basically had to let the car know, okay, as you enter a corner, if you're in track mode, maybe we'll do a little bit of, trail braking. We'll let the back wheels slightly overpower so it goes into a power slide or whatever the variables are. They're actually actively tweaking this to be able to do what people are used to in a high performance car. So it's kind of meshing of these worlds where you have a car that wants to stay pointed straight, wants to stay exactly wherever the steering wheel is pointed, which in sometimes is boring compared to say like a BMW M3 or something where you're going to be power sliding out of each corner, and counter steering, and they're adding some of that to these cars, which is just kind of really cool. I'm excited. I'm excited because it just snowed last night for the first time, and I drove the Model 3 in the snow with the stock tires. Yeah, that's the end of that story, really.
And it worked.
So
yeah, I don't have track mode yet, but I'm excited because then I want to do some donuts.
So I'm totally ignorant about this kind of stuff. Explain to me exactly what like track mode is. Is it basically allows you to drift? Is that the main gist of it? It lets your tires spin?
Yes, it'll basically unlock the full potential of the car in a sense where it'll even do more aggressive regenerative braking. So the idea is if you are on a racetrack, you want the car to do certain things that it's not doing right now. So some of those things are power oversteering, understeering less by however they're going to be doing that. Even things like, say you're coming into a corner, it's beneficial to, say you're turning left. It would be beneficial to apply more brakes on the inside, so the left front wheel, than the right front wheel, because the right front wheel will potentially be the one that's going to cause understeer. I'm talking just totally off the top of my head. I might be a little bit wrong about some of these things, but there's ways that you can kind of apply vectoring, so where the car will use power on one wheel and not the other, and actually cause it to yaw more, or to cause it to turn in more and things like that. So basically it's going to make it so it's faster on the track.
you have more control, essentially, right? Like the car, yes. The car is designed for people to drive on roads, right? And so generally you want to keep it stable and accurate in terms of how it turns and how it handles. But when you're on a track, you may want to take a corner super sharp, right? And you might spin out a little bit, but that'll give you a couple extra tenths of a second. And so giving you kind of that more manual controls, I guess, is the way I like to think of it.
I almost think, after reading the article with Motor Trend, it's almost more like the people that are used to a car on a track, when you reach the limits of grip, your experience of 20 years of racing tells you the car is going to do this. A normal car will do this. A normal car, when you're braking really hard at the entrance of a turn, will start to understeer. And then as you apply power, you loaded the front tires, the back end's going to start to step out. You give it more gas, you keep that back end, whatever, that's your almost your instinct when driving at the limits. That's what these people that do this stuff often are wanting from a car. Right. And the way Tesla designs these cars is to not do that, because that's could be dangerous. So now they're basically giving the people what they're used to. They programmed it to be more predictable in these manners of what you are used to as someone that may be pushing a vehicle to the limit, which is really cool.
It's programming a computer to drive as if it wasn't being driven by a computer.
Yeah,
which is
artificial
really
naturalness.
Yes.
And that's actually very strange, because all cars, essentially, like modern cars, are also driven by computers. When you hit the accelerator or the gas pedal in a BMW, that's not a mechanical switch that flips that actually feeds more gas in and gets you going faster. There is a computer that says, oh, I'm going at this speed, you're pressing at this rate, I need to increase, all the different levers and stuff in there at this speed, this thing, to respond to what you're doing. So there's still, even today, is like this calculation that happens.
Well, I don't know about Joe. Yeah, we may have lost you for a second there, but you're absolutely right.
Judging from what happened last week, you were coming in loud and clear, and we're just in here like.
Thank you guys for listening so patiently.
Well, but I mean, to the point that I think you were making there, like when people, some of the naysayers about Tesla and the Model 3, they're all like, I don't want to be driving a computer. I'm like, well, you probably already are, and you just don't know it.
You definitely are.
This is something that's been happening for a long time now. It's just now they've kind of taken it to its logical conclusion, I guess. Yeah,
and people forget, with carburetors haven't been in cars for decades, and as soon as you start getting ECU involved, electronic control unit. Is that what? I don't even know what ECU stands for. That's funny. I've thought about it 100 times. million times. We'll say a million. I don't know. But that controls in a traditional fuel injected vehicle. It's reading how much air is coming in. It's putting the amount of fuel in based on throttle inputs, based on all these other things. And yeah, like Ben said, you're not pushing an accelerator pedal and pulling a cable that's going to open up a butterfly valve in your throttle plate. Like that hasn't happened for a long time on new cars. So yeah, but there's still heritage things that you're used to as a performance enthusiast that you expect the car to do under certain conditions. And that had to actually be programmed into these cars, which is just crazy.
I've always thought it's funny in commercials, especially for sports cars, they're always drifting and they're always sliding and there's always like a slick road. And I'm like, isn't that the last thing you want when you're driving your cars, for it to be sliding all over the road with like no connection from the wheels to the road, just spinning crazily?
But it looks cool. It looks cool,
but until it wraps around a pole,
But see, my friends and I are the ones that would, even though we have the straightest roads out here in the world, basically, Iowa's a grid. For some reason, we still think like, oh yeah, I don't know, but it's parking lot fun in the winter is basically all it is for us, really. But yeah.
Well, the snow makes it pretty easy to drift, I imagine.
Very easy to drift, yeah.
I don't get much of that down here. Although if like a snowflake falls on the ground, the whole highway is a parking lot in Texas.
Well, track mode. Huzzah.
Track mode. The next piece of, I guess I'll cover this one. The next piece of Tesla news is they have a new chairman of the board or chairperson of the board. For those of you who follow, and I'm sure that's all of you who watch this, Elon got in trouble with his tweets, and the SEC, part of their deal was that he had to step down as chairman of the board. He got to stay on as CEO. So there's been a lot of speculation who's it going to be. For a while, we're talking about Rupert Murdoch's son possibly becoming chairman, but turns out that was just rumors. The person that they have now promoted to this position is Robin Denholm, who has been on the board for a while. She was the chief finance officer and head of strategy at Telstra from Australia. So I guess she is Australian, yeah? Is that the consensus? Not that it matters.
Sounds like it would, yeah.
Also, I like how
she's
just
Australian.
A chair. I like how she's just a chair. Tesla names Robin Denholm as chair.
People just sit on her. And
up next, Timothy Dodd gets named Couch of Tesla.
Yeah.
Well, I still can't get over that she's moving from Telstra to Tesla. Mm-hmm. It's the same letters even. It's just there's an extra T in there.
And an extra.
Yeah, well, Telstra was Australia's largest telecommunications company. I'm actually reading from a Teslarati article here, but she's been on the board since 2014. So she's down with the cause. I mean, 2014 is pretty far back in Tesla time.
Yeah.
But let's see what else we got here. She was previously the chief financial and operations officer at Juniper Networks, which I believe is also in Australia. But a little statement she made, she says, "I believe in this company. I believe in its mission, and I look forward to helping Elon and the Tesla team achieve sustainable profitability and drive long-term shareholder value." So, I mean, that's the job of the chairman, is to make sure that they're looking out for the interests of the shareholders. And I don't know too much about her, so I can't make a personal statement or anything. But I mean, if she can be Gwen Shotwell 2.0, I'm thrilled.
Yeah, I think that's what everyone's hoping for is, for those of you unfamiliar, Gwen Shotwell's the president of SpaceX, and she's really honestly the one that makes SpaceX work. Like Elon,
she's a badass.
She is. You're gonna have to beep it.
No, we have to beep that one.
Sorry, children. He said bad abs. ABS.
she's got a 12-pack.
She's got some bad abs. Anyway, she's the one that like actually sells the services that SpaceX provides, basically. Yeah. And without her business sense and her wrangling in of Elon's everything, I don't think SpaceX would be what it is at all.
I mean, wouldn't you say that she kind of translates Elon's wishes to the rest of the company? Like she's the one who actually makes it happen. Like that's kind of how I see it.
100% say that.
Yeah.
And so that's why that Robin could hopefully be wrangling in a little bit of those things that aren't always a positive thing that Elon provides to Tesla. Hopefully she can help.
I was reading an article this morning. You know, Ron Barron, the big investor who's very pro Tesla. He was saying that it's a good thing that they have a woman as the chairman of the board, because he thinks that Elon works better with with women underneath, kind of trying to keep him in check. But I mean, I'm positive about it. I think it's a good thing, and now that that's kind of settled, maybe we can kind of move forward and kind of let the progress that's already happening keep going. And it's all uphill from not uphill, but
the thing about her statement that I think was interesting is the sustainable profitability thing. I don't know if that's truly the best path. Like, yes, they've proven they can make money, but they need to build a couple new factories here. Yeah. And that may dip into the red a little bit. Mm-hmm. So
and build new cars. They can't just ride the 5-year-old Model S wave, and they gotta refresh stuff and make new stuff.
Yeah. So I think there's just some, I don't know. That sounds like very typical executive speak. And I don't know if that's actually the best strategy. I guess from my perspective, I think that they probably need to push the accelerator to ludicrous mode here a little bit more, because they're still a fledgling car company. They really are.
I think if they posted 2 quarters of profit just to kind of help show that they can do that at this point, I think Q4 another quarter of profit would be nice just to post again.
They probably will. They probably will. And if not, I'm guessing they'll come out and say, because we spent $3 billion on this new factory. And everyone's like, oh, okay, cool. I got, that's fine.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Well, I just kind of read that as a statement for her to, I guess, calm the investors, to let them know I'm in charge and this is my goal, is to look out for you. And,
Yeah. Yeah. Because I think that's been obviously we know Q1, Q2, Q3. I mean, I think that's the main reason why Elon had Twitter breakdowns, was because of all of the FUD, the shorts, the stock shorting, and people, rumors and negative press, and all these people saying that they couldn't do it. And him and his team are sitting there looking at it going no, clearly we know we're going to make money here. What are you guys thinking? How can you bet against us right now? And I think having someone to at least help investors stay confident and not read into all that stuff is, I don't know. I mean, that'd be a good thing in my book.
Well, just to round this out, there's a statement here from Elon himself. It says, Robin has extensive experience in both tech and auto industries, and she's made significant contributions as a Tesla board member over the past 4 years in helping us to become a profitable company. I look forward to working even more closely with Robin as we continue accelerating the advent of a sustainable energy, unquote. So
cool.
Yeah.
So we have a new chair.
Got a new chair. I think it's a good thing. I'm positive on it.
Goes well with the new couch that Elon got,
and all that nice rug we got from IKEA.
So how about we switch over to SpaceX and some cool. I'll let you take it, Tim. I know you.
Speaking of Gwen Shotwell.
Right.
This is big. Actually, it's small.
It's mini. It's small.
It's small, but I'm really, really, really excited about this. I haven't even talked about it with my channel or anything yet. I can't wait to talk about this. This is something that's huge. Out of nowhere, or just randomly the other day, Elon says on Twitter, mod to SpaceX tech tree build. Falcon 9 second stage will be upgraded to be like a mini BFR ship. Okay, so there's already just in that little tweet, there's a lot to dive into, and I'm so excited because although it's honestly, we kind of saw stuff like this happening. He was even talking about playing around with second stage recovery way back, even I think in 2017. I think after the SES-10 launch, which was the first time they reused a booster, they were talking already about. He was just saying someday I think we're going to play around with second stage recovery. And that's when he mentioned this thing like a party balloon, or maybe that was after Falcon Heavy. He mentioned like a party balloon and all these different ways to try to recover the upper stage of a Falcon 9 rocket. Just so to put this into perspective, the upper stage is just let's see. So the whole rocket is 70 meters tall. The first stage is 45 meters tall. So that leaves 25 meters between the fairing and the upper stage. The upper stage is probably, 15 meters long. Or
okay, so the second stage is not the fairing.
Is not the fairing. Nope. Good call. So the fairing they're still working on recovering that on its own. But then the second stage, because the fairing deploys about 3 minutes into flight. And then it's very suborbital when the fairing will fall relatively close to where the booster falls when it lands on the drone ship, like within the same region of the world, at least. It's not like the fairing is now all of a sudden, east of Africa or something.
Right.
Like it's within a couple, 100 kilometers or something of the booster landing. So the thing that's crazy though is the second stage, it speeds up 3 or 4 times faster than the first stage. So in order for it to come back in for reentry, it's very, very difficult. It only needs to slow itself down about 1% to start dipping back down into the atmosphere. That's how the space shuttle, when it came back in for reentry, it literally only slowed down 1%, which is nothing. Like it just turned around for a little bit and goes and slowed down. That was enough to get it on the opposite side of the planet to go into the atmosphere. And once it's in the atmosphere, once it dips its toes in that water, that atmosphere really starts slowing it down and it would do that. So that's what they're going to be doing is they're going to be basically taking the second stage after it deploys a payload, after it does the work with customers' payloads on it, most likely. It'll get the work out there. It'll do its thing. And then normally it does deorbit itself anyway. It turns around, fires its engine, and purposefully puts itself into the Indian Ocean is normally where it falls. And there's even an exclusion part on the map where ships and airplanes can't be in that area during that time, just like a launch, because there is going to be a vehicle coming in that, like a comet, basically, like just shooting through the atmosphere and could really do some damage. So they're taking this opportunity to test some of the things that they're going to be working on with the BFS, the upper stage of the new BFR rocket, or the BFR, the big Falcon rocket. So aiming for, then he says they're going to be aiming for orbital flights of this testing of this mini-BFR ship in June of next year is what he said. And of course, that led me to right away ask, like, are they going to try to actually recover this? Because testing is one thing, surviving reentry, we relatively know how to do that. Capsules survive reentry. The space shuttle survived reentry. We kind of know physically how to survive reentry, so it's not out of the question. But then my head went to, they're probably going to try to land it and reuse it. But so I asked, how will it propulsively land? And then I say the MVAC, the engine that's on there, has too high of a thrust to weight ratio. So in other words, even at its minimum throttle setting, with the nearly empty second stage, would be like 5-1 or something crazy. Like it's not 5-1, but like, I don't know, really high thrust to weight ratio. In other words, it's pushing a lot harder than gravity's pulling down on that stage. Therefore, meaning they would have to turn on the engine at the exact second in order to stick the landing on that, which they probably, honestly, at this point, probably could do. But then I say, and it would also have flow separation at sea level, which is meaning the giant bell, the giant nozzle on the upper stage is too big for sea level use because the ambient pressure in the air pushes in too much and it can actually create these shock waves inside the nozzle and end up destroying the engine.
We talked about that before, how those parts are, because they're made to be used in space, are quite different than the ones that you use here.
Yep.
To
and
get
it's
off
mostly
the
just that nozzle. It's mostly just the big nozzle on the end of the engine. So the engines they're theoretically the same, but now they've kind of both evolved quite a bit between the vacuum and the sea level engine, but they just have basically a different nozzle, which is crazy. So, and then I said, or will this just be to practice the reentry? And Elon replied, well, it won't land propulsively for these reasons. So basically he's saying, we're not going to try to land it propulsively. They're going to use this ultralight heat shield and a high Mach control surfaces. Those are the things that they can't really test well without being in orbit. So they're going to start playing around with these things like a heat shield, this new heat shield that'll be used on BFR, BFS, and the control surfaces that they can't really test without that. And then he says, I think we have a handle on propulsive landings. And I said, I think somewhere, where was that? He replied again down here somewhere. I basically said, I think you have a handle on that too. And he answered one more question. What was it? Why isn't it you think it'd show up right away there?
Somewhere in that haystack.
Yay, Twitter.
Yeah, thanks, Twitter. That's weird. Anyway, basically he ended up saying that they're I don't even remember now what the next reply was. Great, thanks a lot, Twitter. But basically, here I'll just look it up on my own here.
Well, I did want to get a question in here. I'm sharing on the screen. If you guys are watching on YouTube, you see it. Obviously, if you're on a podcast, you're not seeing this, but I'm looking at a diagram of the different Falcon 9 rockets, and then the Falcon Heavy here.
Yep.
And so Block 5 is the current one, right?
Yep.
That's the one with like the kind of the murdered out legs. Fins. Yep.
Legs. Those are the legs. The landing legs.
Right. The fins are up here.
Oh, yep.
Which are also murdered out. This is like the matte black everything. So where does second stage begin? Is it just right where this black bar kind of is?
So the black bar is connected to the first stage. That's called the inner stage.
Okay.
And inside that black bar, though, is the vacuum engine of the upper stage. Yeah,
okay.
Exactly.
Yeah,
so the second stage, actually, why don't you give me full screen again here quick?
Okay. Because you have an actual scale model of this at his house. So this is maybe a reason for people to watch on YouTube, because Tim is going to do a live demo.
Okay. So
whoa.
I can't hear you guys. But hold on. Try and put on headphones one-handed. Okay. So ta-da, watch this. This is actually
what?
So so inside there is the upper stage engine, and this is called the inner stage. And it's basically just empty. And it holds on to the upper stage while it's on ascent. And then once there's stage separation, the second stage comes out. So this whole thing, minus though the payload. So this rocket that I'm holding in my hands, for those of you on the podcast, sorry, you're not seeing this, but I have a model rocket, a 1/72nd scale size model rocket of Falcon 9 Block 5. And on top is the Dragon 2. So this is the Crew Dragon that will be launching next year. But right here, where the solar panels end, that is where the second stage ends. So normally the second stage would let go of everything above here, and then it would just be this portion, basically everything below these solar panels. And it's still a significant part of the rocket. It's still a significant cost of the rocket. I'm not positive, even after reading these tweets, whether or not they're still hoping to try to even recover it. If they can survive reentry, there's a chance they might be able to pop a chute on it and try to catch it, with an airplane or something. It would be relatively small. That's not unheard of. That is small potential for that. So I don't know if they're working on recovery. I think they're mostly worried about collecting data and seeing if this heat shield is going to work out, seeing if, these control surfaces work like they expect them to, basically doing like real world wind tunnel testing, like hypersonic, orbital velocity wind tunnel testing is the way I read this. And I can't wait to see the top of this look like a mini BFR. But one of the challenges that's a major challenge, and I would love nothing more than to ask Elon about this, is so obviously when this is deployed, there's still the bulk of the weight on the second stage is going to be this engine and that nozzle. And the BFS has control surfaces all the way down to the bottom of its engines, basically. So I don't know how they would extend in order to balance out basically like the center of lift or the center of pressure against the center of mass. You do have to have control surfaces way down here around the engine portion. If you don't have control surfaces and or a heat shield down here, it can't re-enter like it plans to with the BFS. And I just actually don't know how they're going to do that or what they can do to replicate. I don't know. That I'm very, very, very curious about.
Well, when you look at so we're calling the second stage the BFR, the BFS. Is that basically what's happening here?
First stage BFB, second stage BFS.
Okay.
Yep.
So
Falcon ship.
After they, made the last bit of tweaks to it, we talked about how they didn't have that big bell, but they had smaller ones, and it kind of like the outside kind of came down around it, so they were kind of cushioned up underneath. Cushion's not the right word, but hidden up underneath the solid outside of the rocket.
Yes.
Maybe they'll do something like this, and instead of having that inner stage, it'll just kind of come down, and you'll have like smaller, Raptor engines or whatever on the underside of it. It's the same idea as what they want to do, right?
Yeah, that would be crazy to me if they actually connected the inner stage to the second stage. I don't know if they can actually do that, though, to be honest. I think there'd be a lot of challenges there because then you're dragging all that extra weight. So anything that's connected to the second stage directly detracts from your payload. Since it goes all the way with the payload until you let go of the payload, any extra kilogram you have on your second stage directly takes away from your payload capability.
Sure.
So to lug the inner stage with the second stage would be a very big performance gap.
Well, or maybe they don't need an inner stage. Like they'll have a way of just connecting it to the top of the booster. But I'm just saying that, like, instead of having that one big bell, it would have like smaller ones, just like they had in the image of the BFR.
I don't think they can do that. They would have to requalify. So if they make an engine change, so changing out to like a smaller vacuum engine or something like that. They had this old engine called the Rutherford. No. Geez, that's Electron. What was it called? The Kestrel engine. Does that sound right?
I'm sure.
It's been a minute. The Falcon 1 upper stage did use a smaller vacuum engine. And I don't think they're going to mess around that much with customers' payloads. I think this is literally going to mostly be a test of the heat shield and control surfaces. So I think they're literally just going to be sticking it to the side. Option, I still can't imagine this, would be disconnecting of the engine.
Just dropping it?
Maybe. I mean, that's still a very complicated thing. Just dropping it is a...
Yeah.
But
I mean, if they're just testing out that crazy belly flop, re-entry thing, I mean, I could see them maybe they do just release the engine and just test and see if I don't know.
It's called
it'll be interesting to see what they do.
It's the Rodney Dangerfield maneuver is what they're calling it, I believe.
Because
it gets no respect.
I don't get it.
Yeah, it's an old movie from the 80s. You were too young.
Back to School.
Yep. See? We have our elder here to school us on these things.
In my day, we had movies. You went to the cinema, Nickelodeon.
But you know what to me could have made potentially sense-ish would have been like almost like a CubeSat, like a little tiny satellite or a little tiny development thing, and just test that little portion. Because I'm having I can't wait to see what they came up with, though. I'm having a really hard time understanding how they're going to do that style of reentry with and I'm not saying they won't. I'm not a naysayer like that. Oh, they can't do that. They obviously don't know about the center of mass. Like, I hate when people say that stuff. Like, dude,
they haven't figured that out.
No idea what they're working on. Like, stop armchair engineering this. Like I am. I just realized my cable's like wrapped around my head.
Like, they clearly don't know what they're talking about. They haven't had any success to date.
Have they thought about this? Has SpaceX considered? No, all the 7,000 people that work there. No one thought that, like, I mean, of course there's always going to be. So whatever we're thinking of right now, I can't wait to see what it actually is. It'll be crazy. I want to go see that launch just so I can. I just that stuff really fascinates me when you make a change that you see out on the pad and you're looking up at it and you're like, how is that going to work? Is this going to work? That excitement building around those engineering challenges are what I just love. I love it. Yeah.
Exciting.
Yeah, it is. It's really exciting.
Yeah. And so,
especially when this is like such a tease right now, like it could be anything. And so there's all this speculation. The speculation is fun though.
Yeah. And so, but what's the outcome of this though? So all right, let's say we snap our fingers and it works and it's perfect. However they do it, whatever, we don't know that, but let's just say they can recover the second stage. Let's say they can land it, back right on top of stage one. Who knows? Right? And it just comes right back together. What would the benefit be? What would be the reason for doing all this?
So my personal guess / what I know, I don't think they're going to, at this point, I can't see them actually truly pursuing second stage recovery and reuse yet for the Falcon 9. I think that they maybe could. I'm not throwing it out as they won't. But it's still a big challenge, a big engineering challenge. And they really are shifting gears into making the BFR work. And this is, from what I read and from what I understand, this is a test bed to make sure the reentry that's really hard to test without reentering will work on the BFR and the BFS.
Mhm.
That's my big takeaway. I don't know if they will even remotely try to actually recover and reuse the second stage.
So this is a learning opportunity for them for other things that will have a real application is what you're thinking.
Yeah, again, I'm not saying that they won't end up recovering second stages in the future, especially because some of the BFR stuff might take much longer than they think. You know, they're hoping to launch a BFR in a couple of years, 2, 3, 4 years really is when we might start seeing them fly. But some of these challenges, they might just end up solving using a Falcon 9 basically, potentially, and then therefore have a reusable Falcon 9 too, which wouldn't be a bad thing either. So
amazing.
I mean, if they're dumping the second stage back through the atmosphere anyway, they might as well put a couple fins on it and a heat shield and see what happens, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And that's basically what they did with the first stage. You know, the first stage, they were just ditching it after 2.5 minutes. Why not play around with it and see, even if it's a wild, harebrained scheme, like it'll relight the engines and try landing it on a ship. Like, yeah, that's insane until it works and until you actually hone in on that. But it was wasted product at that point. It's going away. It's going bye-bye. You might as well try. And that's what they're doing right now with the fairings. They're working on what's a pretty Wile E. Coyote scheme of driving a boat underneath a air surfing, fairing falling from space. Like, it's pretty crazy, but it's only crazy until it works. And then you're like, oh, I guess that works. Yeah. And this is exactly what I love about SpaceX. Is that we see this stuff. They talk about it ahead of time. We get excited about it. I do wish other aerospace companies would talk a little bit more about what they're working on. I don't really know why they don't. Like, it's fun. We like to hear about stuff.
There's not exactly like people knocking down their door trying to be the first one to do that, right? No. There's only like a handful of companies doing any of this stuff. So
yeah. And even if I have a hard time understanding why aerospace companies are so private. Because none of this stuff is novel. Like, no one's like, we're going to try and recover the rocket because it's expensive. No, guys, let's try and recover it. Like, that's the thing that we've tried to do since day one. Like, it's not like, sure, your idea, your way of trying to recover it may potentially be novel, but I don't know. It's still just weird to me. Like, just tell us what you're doing. Blue Origin especially. Tell us more stuff. Yeah. Like, I want to know. It's cool. I want to be excited and tell people about why it's exciting and cool. Let us in. This is what I love about. This is literally what I love about Twitter and what I love about Elon being on Twitter is stuff like this. We got a little insight, little nugget, and now it satisfies.
Now I can't wait to see it. I want it to land right back in the first stage. That's what I want.
I'm calling it. Happen. That absolutely will not happen.
That you say that now.
Do you want a 200,000-pound thruster shooting hot exhaust gas into an interstage on a balancing ship like this?
Look,
in the ocean.
Once we,
Tim, it's only impossible till you do it.
Yeah,
but if they did have you're still assuming
thrusters. You're still assuming propulsion comes from rockets. What about our anti-gravity devices? Come on.
Do you know nothing about UFOs, Tim?
0 point energy.
But that's people are saying they could use the Super Draco thrusters, which are the launch abort motors that they use on the Dragon. But now you introduce a lot more weight. Those things are not weightless. You introduce another propellant. They run on TTEB, triethyl aluminum triethyl, or I think they do, or a monoprop. A hypergolic fuel. I don't remember exactly what it is. I don't think it's TTEP. Sorry, my bad. But they run on a different fuel type than the second stage does. So now you have to add tanks and you have to do all these things. I can't imagine them really using Super Dracos, but maybe for a small payload. If it's a payload that, they might cut their payload capacity in half, but half the time they aren't utilizing the full payload capacity anyway. You know what I mean? So it's like, you might as well stick some of that stuff. I don't know. But now you're talking about a lot more development. You're talking about changing a rocket design. You're talking about, do you now have to recertify it because you tacked on all these extra engines that could potentially blow up? There's a lot of... Yeah.
Well, how about something that is, we know is going to work and is going to bring some real consumer focus and services available to us from SpaceX as well. I think, Joe, you had this one, right?
Well, we hope it's going to work. No, I ran across an article where they have actually kind of nailed down what they're doing with Starlink. For those who are not aware, Starlink is this idea that SpaceX has for putting up a constellation of internet satellites that would make high-speed internet available to everyone around the planet at all times. And so this article is from the New Scientist, and we got it up on the screen here. Really cool video that you're looking at if you're watching on YouTube that shows how many of these and how it would all wrap around. So the idea is that there's 4,425 satellites. To put that in perspective, that is more than the active number of satellites that are currently in orbit, or the number of active satellites that are currently in orbit.
Wow.
So this alone would double, probably, or more so, the number of satellites up in space. And then we can get started talking about space junk and how that's going to be an issue. But anyway, it says initially Starlink will consist of 4,425 satellites orbiting between 1,100 and 1,300 kilometers up. And basically the way it works, it says when sending an internet message via Starlink, a ground station will begin by using radio waves to talk to the satellite above it, which is typical. Once in space, the message will be fired from satellite to satellite using lasers, as you can see on screen there, until it's above its destination. And from there, it will be beamed down to the ground station below using radio waves again. So, what's really crazy about this is that, basically the highest speed thing that we got right now is fiber optics, which is light traveling through a wire. But this will actually travel a little bit faster because it will travel faster. A laser will travel faster through the emptiness of space than it will through a solid substance like glass or a fiber optic cable. So one of the things it's saying in this article is basically, and by the way, the guy who put all this together, his name is Mark Handley at the University College of London. He said that it would mostly benefit people like high volume traders because it would give you like milliseconds faster access to make your trades and whatnot than other people would be able to do. Yeah. But of course, there's also that main point, which is like if you're out in sub-Saharan Africa, you could pull up a suitcase thing and, beam up into space and have fast, high-speed internet access. Mm-hmm. So technically, the guy using a suitcase thing out in the middle of nowhere would have the same speed as some high-end brokerage company, whatever, in New York. So a few things that are interesting about it, if I can find. Okay, so it says to maintain by the way, that's the 4,425 satellites is just the first stage of it. They're going to introduce another 1,000 later on is the plan. But it's saying just to maintain the 4,425, you're going to be launching that number every 5 years because these things don't stay up forever. Mm-hmm. They're going to be coming down. So it was basically saying you would have to be constantly putting up new satellites like every few weeks to maintain this constellation.
It's no big deal for SpaceX. It's really not. I mean, I don't think that's to me, that's not out of the question.
They're relatively small, right? So they could launch lots of them at a time. Maybe not, tons, but.
Yeah, I mean, no, there could potentially be dozens to 100. I mean, they're pretty small, and you can put them on a dispenser. Like the Iridium satellites always get dispensed. It almost looks like a corn cob. They just start kind of popping off, or same with Orbcom did something like that too.
Does it actually say the speed of your signal on Earth though? Because you still have to, as you mentioned, use radio waves to broadcast it down, which are fine. But I think the latency. Bandwidth. Yeah. So I think with SpaceX actually, Gwyneth Shotwell went to Congress and had to testify about this. Was it the FCC? They had to submit applications and have a public hearing about it. And they talked a little bit about the speeds. And they said the latency would be better than cable internet, but the bandwidth would be like gigabit speed essentially. But it didn't, but I believe in their information they shared, it would not be faster than fiber to your home. Like if you were hardwired fiber to your building and to your house, it would not be faster than that.
From what I know, this is the latency thing. I have not heard that it's faster than fiber at home, because you get pings down like 10 milliseconds, and I know that Elon said that it'd be fast enough to game, which I think just want less than like 100 milliseconds of latency to really game well. And right now, if you're using satellite internet, that's a lot of latency, like 1,000 or something, a long, because it has to go all the way out to geostationary orbit, 10, 20 times, 100 times further away or whatever, come all the way back. Like there's a lot more latency there. But from what I knew, the bandwidth was a gig is what they're aiming at.
Right.
Which with fiber, we have 10 gig kind of coming online, especially if you live in Cedar Falls, Iowa. You can have 10 gig coming online. So I think the latency is better, way better than any other satellite internet, way better. And I think it's just, from what I knew, was supposed to be comparable to what you can get kind of like wired in, or getting close, close.
Correct. Right. So it still makes a whole lot of sense for a lot of people, but I wonder how 5G plays into this whole thing, because Verizon already has that on in 4 cities in the US, and that it just home service now, and that'll eventually later on. There are a lot of challenges with 5G, to make it work with mobile and stuff like that. But that, I believe, promises 10 gig speeds. So that would be like 10x improvement over kind of most fiber channels now. Or, for most fiber channels, I would say, excluding Cedar Falls, of course. But I wonder if that is like hey, this is cool, but I am still going to have something that's 10 times better at my house, if I live in a place that has that enabled. Versus, hey, yeah, I live in a rural area and right now it's absolutely terrible and this is going to be fantastic. Like, I just wonder the market penetration and if they'll be able to compete, and perhaps those numbers they give out were relatively conservative. I don't know.
Well, the big thing is, even today, if I were to drive for 15 minutes, 20 minutes, I could probably find someone that's on almost dial-up. You know what I mean? Right. And there's going to be so many people around the world that just don't have the infrastructure in place yet, that this will be, we're talking about potentially billions of people that, so forget Verizon's little 100,000, I'm making up numbers, 100 million people or whatever,
it's a small market like Los Angeles, not many people there.
But Los Angeles compared to, India,
China.
Sure.
China?
No. But that's my point, right? So what is the overall market potential for this from like an economic standpoint?
7 billion people. I mean, I don't know.
Well, no, I'm sure it's large. I'm sure it's large.
Says somewhere in here that Elon wants half of internet users to be using this system so he wants like half the market basically over time.
That's it?
Only half the world.
Only half the world.
But I mean, like, it's not really in this one, but I read somewhere else that like some people are considering the whole Starlink thing to be like just printing money. Like that's where they're really going to be making all their money. It's kind of like when you look forward on Tesla, the vehicles are the conduit through which they will create the Tesla network, which is really where they're going to make all their money. Like some people are saying that this is like SpaceX version of that. SpaceX is the conduit through which they create this network that's going to actually be the moneymaker for them.
Yeah. And they'll have zero competition, essentially.
No, because actually there's 2 other companies like OneWeb. There's 2 other companies that are working on something similar, but SpaceX has a huge advantage in the fact that they won't mark up for their own costs. Like they can throw, anytime there's any extra satellite or any extra payload bandwidth, they can throw these in their rockets, get them up there. They're a launch provider.
Well, that's what I mean in that regard. Like even if someone else wants to compete and do this, they're probably going to go to SpaceX.
Yeah. Well, SpaceX or someone else that is probably going to be more expensive, like space, you know what I mean? Right. SpaceX has a huge leg up there.
It's kind of how if you want to make an electric car, you probably should go to Tesla to buy the batteries, right? And you're going to have to compete on kind of the margins because no one is really able to do that, right? Even the big automakers can't make batteries, or even have Panasonic or someone else make batteries that are as good or at scale.
Yeah.
So they're going to win. They're going to be, dominating that market. Kind of like I liken it. Obviously, I'm a homer, but Qualcomm is a good example where they don't make phones, but they make parts that are in literally every smartphone in the world. Mm-hmm. Nobody knows who they are anymore, but it doesn't matter because they're still a ginormous company. So it could be that like Starlink itself is like down the road, maybe not even the thing, but SpaceX is the one that enables OneWeb or whomever else is doing it because they have to get their stuff up there.
Yeah, and it is one of those things that I'm really curious. I think in the future will just be massive. Like I think this is one of those things that the general public doesn't quite see coming. Once it's online and active, and they're like, oh wait, I can, we can have this at our house, and of course, right now we're talking about pizza box size receivers. Someday it might be smaller than that. We might be able to have them in our cars. You could easily have a state. Imagine if you're on a road trip and you want to be gaming while you're, in the middle of Utah or something, or Nebraska, on just the plains or something where you're far away from any reception. You could just be sitting there playing an online game, no problem, streaming Netflix, doing whatever, or in the sky. That's crazy. Can you imagine gaming in the sky? You bring a Switch or something, and you're just sitting there playing as if you didn't drop at all.
What's your favorite game in the car now in version 9? Is it Lunar Lander?
Lunar Lander, yeah, definitely.
And how come is there? Did I miss it? Is there not a like worldwide scoreboard?
I don't think there is.
I think it's just for your car, right? I don't know why that doesn't exist. That needs to exist.
Yeah, I can't believe that either. Actually,
next update.
Yeah, he did. Elon was asking for ideas. Tell me, he basically said like last night on Twitter. Yeah. Let me know what please let me know what you'd like to improve, fix about your Tesla. That'd be such a petty improvement. Please make a leaderboard for your Atari games. Like a legit worldwide leaderboard. Yeah. How amazing would that be? That's funny. Oh man. Yeah. I'm excited about this. I think it's going to be great. I hadn't seen that animation. That's really cool. This is cool. This is exciting stuff. This is the stuff that I like. And imagine now, okay, so real quick, back to some numbers. We're talking about launching Starlink on Falcon 9s, where I could maybe have a couple dozen or whatever. I have no idea the number. Now imagine BFR launching those. Yeah. It could put up half the constellation in a single launch potentially or whatever. Now, why is that though? Because I remember we had talked about it. The fairing, like the volume, is the same as the Falcon 9. No, Falcon Heavy has the same volume. Oh, okay, right. It's literally an identical fairing to a Falcon 9. And most of that's constrained on the actual like physical size of the diameter of the vehicle. You know what I mean? Right. But the BFR's volume is insane. Like, forget payload capacity. Like, of course, it can lift 100 tons or whatever, which is insane on its own. But it also has, the ability that the actual volume inside is like big. It's like flying a 747 or something and just cracking it open and letting everything fly out of it. I mean, you could potentially almost put the entire constellation in a single launch almost, I think at that time, Elon will become the richest man in the world. I mean, really, when you think about it, when you have this internet constellation flying on BFR, which is reusable and potentially less than $10 million per launch, and you're printing money via the internet, and I wonder, killing it. I wonder if they get to the point where they're like, so now that we have Starlink and that's generating $800 billion a year for us, we're just going to stop sending up payloads for anyone else. We're just going to do our own thing. Forget you guys. We're going to Mars. Like at this point, they have enough money to where they don't have to do that work for anyone else. I'm sure they still will, but they probably could be at a point where it's like, you know what? I don't need you guys anymore. Yeah. It could. So honestly. That could be. Can you imagine? Like, we're only going to make 10 million on this launch. Why do we even care? Screw this. We'll exactly. Just keep launching our own stuff. Forget you guys. Like, we're having it's like half what I had to pay the SEC. Whatever. Yeah. So Ben, you mentioned Qualcomm a minute ago. Quick story. My wife's stepdad, who I guess would be my stepdad-in-law, whatever. He runs these soccer camps, and he did one for a while up in Montana.
on the land owned by the guy who started Qualcomm, and I can't remember his name now. He just passed away actually a couple years ago.
Irwin Jacobs?
No, it was something else. I can't remember his name, but anyway, the story of this guy was he actually created the algorithm that allowed cell phones to connect to towers way back in the day.
Whoa.
So every single time you have sent a text, every single phone call you have made, he has gotten a percentage of a penny.
Oh man, yes.
Billionaire. And so it's that sort of like foundational innovations like that I think maybe Elon's flirting with. That, I mean, you don't know this guy and I don't know how this thing works. And it's such a tiny little thing, but it's like, that's where the money really comes from, is like these tiny little, foundational innovations that wind up, Yeah.
And like
that everything builds on top
basically.
of, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, it's true.
It's the Vint Cerf and Robert Kahns of the world.
Sure. I don't even know who they are, but they're probably billionaires.
The creators of TCP/IP, which is how internet traffic actually flows around, things like that.
It's nuts.
They're making money off of us right now.
The protocols. Yeah.
Yeah, it's true.
Well, what do you guys have coming up?
Oh, how about you can guess what I still haven't finished that video
probably
script.
Some project you've been working on for a while.
But for me, I always get sidestepped, but this week was like one of those, I'm just coming up on like a lot of, how verticals like in your company or in your brand or whatever. Like for me, I've been wanting to relaunch a new store for like 6 months. I've been working on that. That's finally happening this weekend. People have been asking me to get my album online. So I finally got that already. It's all submitted. I remastered all the music. What was that?
So I saw you talking about that in Discord.
Yeah. So that's finally been happening after forever for a year. So finally getting that done. Just kind of for me, like catching up, rebranding some of those things like the intro screen and stuff like that. And it's fun stuff. That stuff, like I worked 14 hours the other day because I was just so excited that I was like, I just couldn't move. I was just like, It's
not work if you're having fun.
Exactly. And I didn't hardly eat that day or anything, but I loved it. So I'm working on that stuff so that, I can get back to some of the other work and just trying to be timely about it. So I'm excited. What about you guys? Joe?
I got a JAXA video coming out on Monday about the Japanese space agency. And specifically it focuses on a lot of their little victories and wins, but the Hayabusa missions to recover samples from asteroids. Pretty amazing technology they've instituted there, and I think it's kind of paving the way for asteroid mining at some point in the future.
Awesome. Yeah. Are you talking about Mitsubishi Heavy and like the H2 and stuff?
The like H2. The I didn't really talk about Mitsubishi though. I know they build it though, don't they? Yeah.
Yep. I think it's made by Mitsubishi, which is so weird. Mitsubishi makes everything. They make freaking rockets. It's crazy.
The Lancer and the rocket.
Fast and the Furious
and your TV.
Do they?
So weird.
True.
That's like Samsung. I feel like Samsung's in that space. You get like a washing machine and a TV and your cell phone.
Yeah, it's so
and you're
weird.
Just like, what?
Yamaha is another one. Motorcycles, like musical instruments. And like
all right.
Random stuff.
Yeah. They're almost like the GEs of the world, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Where they're just like big conglomerates of things. Yeah. My big thing is I am working on a gift buying guide for Tesla owners. Yeah. So it's the holiday season, and I actually get this question a lot, like, what do you use for this? What do you recommend? Yada, yada. So I'm just going to put a little video together with kind of the top 5 products I recommend for Tesla owners. And so
that was space.
Yeah.
Especially with my new web store.
For rocket company owners.
Rocket company owners. Are you the CEO of a rocket company? Well, guess what? I've got a shirt for you.
Yes. You can have an online course.
20%
off. No, yeah. So I think it'd be exciting. I think it's a fun time. And then, of course, next Friday is TeslaCon. So I hope people will join. It'll be free on YouTube. You can watch there in kind of view only mode. Or if you guys want to ask questions of people that are going to be, speaking there, you can just buy a ticket and kind of join kind of on the inside there. So, and Joe, you'll be joining me. Tim, you'll be traveling. I take it.
Travel. Yep.
Cool.
But
so we'll
good
do
luck.
that thing. We'll have fun. Yeah. This is the first time. So last year it was a paid only kind of private access thing. And this year we're doing it kind of free online because I think it's just a community event, and 25% of the proceeds are going to the Electric Auto Association to help kind of EV adoption. And so, it's all good stuff. It's a community event. Whole idea behind all the stuff I do on my channel is to help people go electric. That's really the idea, is to realize how awesome electric cars are, albeit right now there are a few of them that are really, really awesome. And then as time goes on, more and more of them will be awesome. So just kind of ground floor right now.
Cool. Yeah. Did we do it? Did we do 9? Was that our last single digit?
We did 9.
Podcast?
That's it. Oh man.
No way.
Next up, 100.
Well, pay attention soon. The music that we use in this is my own, but it's not going to be on the album that I'm releasing because it's just kind of cabbage filler music.
Is this a rap album?
It's a rap album.
I've always wanted to do a rap album.
Yeah, it's a Spanish rap album.
Listo, vámonos.
I don't know how to say basically like "Donde es el baño," so it's just that over and over. Yeah, so pretty cool.
Perfecto.
That'll be coming out soon. But again, thanks guys for leaving reviews on iTunes. We saw a bunch of them recently, so thank you for doing that. Wherever else you listen, just leave us a review. I know that sounds so petty, but that is the way discoverability happens through like iTunes podcasts and stuff. And of course on YouTube, tell a friend if they're into this stuff to swing on by and hang out and ask questions.
Until then, we'll see you in our ludicrous future.